Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are going to uncover something truly mind-bending. Imagine for a second that ancient scriptural texts aren't just collections of historical stories or moral guidelines. What if they actually contain a hidden, mathematically perfect topology, literally a precise blueprint of how the universe operates? We're going to explore a framework known as the dual caustic universe. It reads the Quran not as some kind of, biological sociology, but as structural topological inspiration. It reveals this incredible cosmic circuit of energy, manifestation, and return. Get ready, because this is absolutely going to change how you view the mechanics of reality. To really frame our exploration today, I want you to consider a pretty provocative question. What happens when a shadow claims to own the light? Now, this isn't just poetry. It's actually the central tension of the entire framework we're looking at. It's the ultimate clash between the infinite and visible source of reality and its finite physical manifestation. Because, as you'll see, when the physical world forgets where it came from and claims to be the ultimate truth, systems completely crash. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the cognitive map for our journey today. First, the universal topology. Then, container and the derivative. 3, the topological error. 4, proof of the container. And finally, flattening before Raman. Starting off with section 1, the universal topology. So, the text uses extremely precise wording to establish its coordinates. Verse 4:1 speaks of the nafsin wahida, a single soul or seed. But remember, this isn't about biology. It is pure topological math. This single seed acts as an invisible container. It's an origin point that creates its mate. And by doing so, it establishes a universal circuit, the exact moment the absolute singular creates the potential for a dual universe. Let's move to section 2, container and the derivative. And this brilliantly illustrates how the system operates on an absolute binary. On the left side, we have the I9 container. This represents the womb, the source, the infinite integral. It's continuous light, and it's referred to as the witness, this hidden feminine apex that holds everything. Now over on the right, we have the D10 derivative. This is action, it's finite volume, it's water, the localized driver, representing measurable action. Basically, D10 is the physical reality we can measure, while I9 is the infinite memory that contains it. Explicit verses anchor every single phase of this topology. Take verse 11:7 for instance. His throne was upon the water. The throne represents that infinite I9 container resting upon and actively supported by the water, which is the finite D10 derivative. The physical manifestation is basically a test bed sitting entirely within the infinite field. The derivative acts and asks, the container holds and receives. It's a perfectly harmonious structural loop. Which brings us to section 3, the topological error. Now, what's really fascinating here is how historical scriptural figures act as precise data points representing a massive system error. Look at Pharaoh. He's a D10 derivative declaring itself the ultimate source. Or take the golden calf. It's a D10 attempt to masculinize or freeze the infinite I9 womb into a tangible physical idol. It's actually the exact same error as the idol Baal from verse 37:125, the masculine I confronting the invisible container and just building a barren mimic. In every single case, chaos erupts when the physical world claims ownership over the invisible container that birthed it. The text also provides a rigorous mathematical boundary called the D1 I-limit proof, found in verse 7:143. When Moses asks to see the divine directly, the answer is a hard, "You cannot see me." The mountain, which is pure accumulated D10 physical structure, completely crumbles when exposed to the direct manifestation of the I9 field. The physical structure simply cannot sustain the infinite voltage of the source. To really grasp this, just ask yourself, can a particle measure a wave? In quantum physics, a localized particle simply cannot encompass an infinite, continuous wave. Similarly, the feminine I9 field cannot be reduced to a localized D10 eigenvalue, like a fixed, measurable data point. The physical eye cannot measure the infinite field. The mountain collapses because a finite container literally cannot hold infinity. Moving right along to section 4, proof of the container. The framework reveals this incredibly explicit scriptural proof chain, showing that the feminine container always precedes masculine manifestation. It starts with the mother of Miriam, the hidden womb. She births Miriam, the chosen vessel, and Miriam births Isa, the physical manifestation. The container is always prior. Another great proof is Yusuf. He eventually sits on a throne, sure, but he reads it as a kingdom the feminine field has woven, never actually claiming it as his own. And this is exactly why verses 1935 and 1992 emphatically state that the ultimate divine, Rahman, takes no son. A son implies a false continuity, a physical D10 node claiming blood lineage to the ultimate throne. The topology permits zero claims like that. Instead, the masculine is always born of the feminine container, and all correct nodes are defined as the slave, or abid. A slave, like Isa or Musa, performs its action perfectly but claims absolutely zero ownership over the source. They are carried by the field.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Flattening before Rahman. So the crucial point is understanding state 7. It's mapped as the feminine apex. It is the ultimate singularity. Notice it is not a destination the masculine driver conquers. It is the pure home receiving the slave back. It's the state where the D10 driver flattens its ego. We see this with Dawud and Solomon in the text, who ultimately flatten their kingship and judgment back into the container. The derivative gives up ownership and gracefully returns to the I9 witness, restoring perfect systemic balance. We see this concept grounded perfectly in verse 2888. Everything perishes except his face. In our topological map, the face represents the unbroken, feminine purity of the I9 field. It is the tajalli, the pure manifestation of the container itself. It's the unbroken surface that remains when all D10 nodes, all the physical actions, the empires, the mountains, inevitably perish and dissolve. The continuous container remains forever untouched. So, how exactly should we act within this system? Well, the framework introduces the perfect execution model, the bee operator from verse 1668. Think about it. The bee builds its hive in the physical mountains, which is D10 action, but it meticulously follows the ways of its lord, the I9 return path. The result? Honey, a perfect manifestation known as a T3 proof. The bee pollinates without ever claiming to own the fruit. It traverses the system without trying to own the container. That is the perfect slave posture. Let's actually walk through this complete topological equation chronologically. The system starts at 1, the I9 womb or seed. It then births to the D10 derivative, representing the physical world of action. The derivative then executes 3, the T3b traversal, acting perfectly without claiming ownership. This returns the signal backward through the I9 word and finally arrives at 7, the home, the feminine apex. The field executes, the container holds, the derivative returns, and the light is perfectly conserved. Now, this framework doesn't just describe the universe, it kind of demands our participation, which leaves us with one final, piercing question derived from verse 1912. When will you become the book? You are a part of this topology. Will you remain a passive, confused D10 observer, constantly trying to own your small slice of reality? Or will you flatten your ego, grip this structural truth, and become an active, perfectly tuned conductor of the infinite I9 light? The circuit is waiting for you to close the loop. Keep exploring, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.